All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the South End Zone. I am Chad. You see Tyler there. We are going to continue this week with doing a little preview, a little look ahead to what's going to be coming up this weekend. It's a big weekend for a lot of schools. It's kind of a big weekend for us. Tyler and I were talking last week about how, or earlier this week, how the Kentucky South Carolina game actually was a preview for both of us. Kentucky looked like dog, and South Carolina actually looked like they might be dangerous. What do you see that might sneak up? You do have to go to Lexington. Georgia's play that one on the road. Based on what you saw against Tennessee Tech, very clean game for Georgia, an ugly game for Kentucky. But you know how this is. Any given Saturday can happen, so you got to be ready.
I think we go into Lexington. I think that given the amount of pressure and that South Carolina was able to apply to Brock Vandergriff and how pedestrian, I mean, he was supposedly, like when we recruited him at UGA, he was number one quarterback recruit in his class. He threw for 30 yards in a college football game, threw for at least one interception, one silly interception. I think we get to him. I think we are going to eat his lunch. I don't think that this Kentucky team has as much preseason hurrah as they did in previous years with the run game. Right. They don't have the same run game that they did.
No Ray Davis.
There's no Ray Davis, no Devin Leary, and you look farther back, there's no Will Levis. It's a whole different Kentucky squad. Yeah. I'll be honest with you.
When's the last time Kentucky recruited a quarterback that just stayed at Kentucky?
Right.
It seems like the last handful have all been transferred.
Yeah, that's facts. I think we go into Lexington, night game. I think we already talked about it kind of last week. Kentucky has not shown much. And I think that we are taking care of business nicely so far. I think, under the lights, whatever they want to put us, noon, 3:30, 7:30.
Right.
The only factor, I think, honestly, is the fact that it's going to be in Lexington. We could get out of there slow. But once we can get the crowd out of it, I think we take care of business.
Yeah, and it's a night game, so that brings a different. We talked about it last week. It brings a little bit of a different atmosphere. So it's you gotta be ready. But I think you guys have the talent and of course Kirby Smart's not going to let you guys piddle around with that. LSU South Carolina could be a little bit of a different story. Why they chose this to be the game day game, I have no idea. But here we are. Game day is going to Columbia, and it's for LSU South Carolina. Like the most mid game day choice. I'm looking at the schedule. Like I'm not a big fan of Alabama, as everyone knows, but like, why aren't you going to Alabama, Wisconsin? That's actually a game where Alabama has to really be ready and come to play, or they could be in trouble. You could go to A&M Florida in the swamp. That makes more sense. I don't understand this, but I'm here for it. I mean, you could have gone Oregon State. It's the first time they're doing that, not in the Pac-12 together. So I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, but here we are. LSU has got to do a better job of stopping the run and running the football. That's primary. They let this Guggenheim kid from Nichols last week run for almost 150 yards on him and a couple of touchdowns. And if you look at the way that Lenora Sellers and Robbie Ashford and then Rocket Sanders as the tailback, that like there's some real running threat, and then Sellers can throw the ball downfield. Now he did throw an ugly pick, and he missed a couple other throws. There were so I don't know how he looks if you actually get some pressure on him, and in the type of atmosphere that's going to be. Not to say that they didn't take the Kentucky game seriously, but it's just different. LSU comes into your building. There's going to be a different level of anxiety and like anxiousness to try to perform. So the way I look at it, though, is I look at the LSU side of things. And if first of all, they already lost Jacoby and Guillory, starting interior defensive lineman who tore his Achilles this past week. So you're getting thinner up front. You already are struggling stopping the run. I just wonder because then it falls on the secondary, and if you can't get that pass rush, it just gets really difficult. We saw what that looked like last year for LSU. And then can they run the ball? This offensive line is supposed to be one of the best, if not the best in the country, and couldn't run the ball against Nicholls State. Now, they didn't run the ball a lot. only ran it like 20 times as a team, but still, like, they weren't terribly effective when they were, and they had to do it all through the air. Now, Garrett Nussmeier had a great game, 6 touchdowns through the air. That's great, but you've got to be more balanced, and LSU's got to establish the run. So that's the way I look at it, is that up front, the front 7 on defense and that O-line and those tight ends getting the job done in the running game on offense. Otherwise, it's going to be towards the higher end of the loss predictions for LSU for this year. But I think this is going to be an interesting game. It's a winnable game, but it's a very losable game. And I know that the Gamecocks are going to be like ready, rowdy.
I think, like you said, it's of this slate, which it's like the slate is up and down for this week. I think it's crazy that they're going to game days coming to Columbia, but it is what it is. I think that South Carolina, it has historically been one of those teams that when they can put it together, they will ruin your day.
Right.
I think like most teams have never been successful doing 2 quarterbacks.
Right.
And so far, South Carolina and Beamer ball has made it look respectable. And like it looks good. Like they don't look bad doing it. Like it's still like you never know what's going to happen.
Well, they're mixing it in a way that I think it's not. What's always been weird is when they do it and it's this random looking stuff, or it's this
on the same
obvious
drive.
Yeah, it's this. Yeah, they're alternating drives, or they're doing something where they're running people on and off, and they're getting delay of games and stuff like that. This is a much better, more efficient way of doing it, and the scenarios make sense. Ashford will come in when they're getting a little closer to the goal line because he presents that run threat, but he won't be in there for the whole possession inside the red zone. Alabama, Wisconsin. Talked about this as what could have been a better game day choice than the LSU South Carolina game. But after what we saw with Alabama, do you think that there's a chance that Luke Fickell, now he's only got a week to prepare for this one. Usually he's a little bit better if he has some more time to prepare. But what do you think about Wisconsin and their ability to actually maybe pull this off and be the first chink in the armor for the Sabanless Alabama Crimson Tide?
It's hard to say. Wisconsin has not gotten Wisconsin is 2-0, but has not looked so great doing it. They beat Western Michigan 28-14 and then play South Dakota, not South Dakota State, South Dakota, beat them 27-13. So it's really hard to say. The biggest thing is you're going to be in Camp Randall, jump around. It's like we don't very often get to see Alabama go on the road out of conference like this in the season. It's like they save all of their road games for the conference games. And if they do play somebody like good out of conference, usually they're coming to Alabama.
Or it's a neutral site or something.
Or it's neutral site, exactly. Right. But Luke Fickell is a guy known to get his teams ready to go for this kind of game. It can go a lot of different ways. I think if Alabama gets off to the same start they did against USF, they're not going to be as lucky. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think that Notre needs to clean a lot of his stuff up. I think that Bama has shown that they can score in a big way really quickly, but I don't think Wisconsin's going to present the same sort of like
they're a tougher challenge on defense.
Right. Yeah. USF did not capitalize on the opportunities given. I think Wisconsin, if you give them as many chances as you did USF last week, Wisconsin's taking care of business.
Yeah. From Fickell's ability to like turn that into points is different. Yeah. So keeping it in Florida, though, do we have a chance to see 0-3? 0-3. I don't know. We'll see. Memphis has a chance to do it, though. This is not an easy matchup for a reeling Florida State team. Mike Norvell better have his guys ready to go because Memphis is going to bring it, and Tallahassee might be. I don't know. They might be running for the exits in the mid fourth quarter or maybe even the third quarter if they're not careful. You got to be careful. And so one of the teams that beat Florida State already this year, Boston College,
is that ranked?
And they're going to Missouri, to Columbia to play the Tigers there. This could be an interesting one to keep our eyes on for sure. I'm not going to make a prediction on it like we talked about earlier in the week. It's still too early. We don't have enough data. There's so much of this stuff where we don't know what we're seeing. You can't trust your eyes just yet. There's a lot of people who are like, either looking uglier than they actually are or who look a lot better than they actually are. And so I'm going to withhold judgment for now until we get a little bit more data. But this will be one of those data points that we will look at.
Most definitely. I think, given how it should be, like, I think now you got to, it's Boston College, but now they're ranked coming into your house, Missouri. And if you're going to continue to establish yourself as one of those teams in the SEC, regardless of who it may be, you take care of business when they come to your house. And that's what I think they're going to do this weekend. I don't know in what way or what fashion, but I think Luther Burden and those boys are going to get it done.
There you go. Oregon State reigniting the rivalry, even though they're not in the Pac-12 together anymore. This will be another one to keep an eye on because Oregon just had that really close brush with death against Boise State at home last week. And now Oregon State welcomes them in to Corvallis. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what it looks like. It's going to be an interesting one. Speaking of somebody close by welcoming in a rival into their home stadium, Purdue, after a bye week. This early in the season, Purdue had the week off. They've had 2 weeks to get ready. They've had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. And Notre Dame goes to West Lafayette to take on the Boilermakers after that stunning and very upsetting loss to Northern Illinois. What do you think here?
Listen, Purdue is one of those teams that, may never truly break through in the Big Ten, but there's one thing they're guaranteed to do is to hurt somebody's feelings.
That's right.
And upset somebody's season. Usually it's like an unlikely.
They're the Mississippi State, Arkansas of the Big Ten.
And because Notre Dame has no conference record to worry about, it's just is what it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Notre Dame is now 18th in the polls. I mean, I think they could be out of the polls for all I care. AP doesn't watch football. We know this. But Purdue.
Although they did watch enough to know to put 6 of the top 7 teams in the top 7 were all from the SEC. Ohio State was the lone non-SEC participant in the top 7 of the AP poll this week.
I think that, obviously this is massive overreaction type of energy, but at the same time, even if Notre Dame would have won last week, you still don't overlook this game.
No, for
sure. This is in-state. You're going to Purdue. I think that Notre Dame better come ready to play or they're going to walk away 1-2. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. So So do they come out with a vengeance and take it out on Purdue? Does Purdue maybe get a little bit ahead of themselves because they think that this is going to be an easier chance and they don't come quite ready? Or is it the opposite? Maybe Notre Dame is just kind of like feeling themselves and Purdue smells blood in the water and actually gets it done. It's going to be an interesting another one of those data points like we were talking about. Now, Texas A&M Florida, this is one. Yeah, this is one that I think had Notre Dame not lost to Northern Illinois, this wouldn't look as ugly as it does because now Texas A&M losing to Notre Dame looks bad because that was in College Station at night, opening weekend, and this is a Texas A&M team that actually thought they were contending for something. Now you're worse than a team that lost to Northern Illinois. And now you're going into the swamp to play a team that hasn't won a game yet. Or no, they did beat Samford, but they got blown out by Miami. I was thinking Florida State. But yes, they got blown out by Miami week 1, then got healthy against a very weak Samford team this past week. If Billy Napier in Florida finds a way to get it done against A&M, I'm here to tell you, it's A&M all over again. We are this, or is it Texas 4-8 this year? We joke about calling them Texas 8-4, but really, this is both of these teams I think are playing for their lives, and they can't fire Mike Elko. They're already paying Jimbo Fisher $100 million to not coach. They can't pay another coach that much to not coach on top of the one they're already paying to not coach. So they're stuck with Mike Elko for a while. But Florida and Billy Napier, this could be a way for him to get himself back up off the mat.
Right. I think, listen, Florida, with Graham Mertz having his concussion, or so it'd be, DJ Lagway. I mean, it's against Samford.
Yeah.
But 456 and 3 tuds.
Yeah.
Not something to just forget about. That's all I got to say. I think that if Florida can play the way that they possibly can, they are not on paper, they should not be a bad team. Texas A&M on paper is a bad team. So that's the difference. So I think that in the swamp, I think that I would lean towards Florida here, but it's ugly versus uglier right now until proven otherwise.
Right. And finally, we will wrap it up with a rematch of a double overtime thriller last year. Colorado won this one at home last year, but now they got to go on the road to their in-state rival. And this is coming off of a beatdown at the hands of Nebraska last week where I don't know. I saw a little clip of Shedeur Sanders like walking off the field with 2 minutes left, but whoever posted it, they muted the audio. So like I don't know if he was like dinged and was going to get something looked at.
I mean,
it was a bad look.
probably.
It was a bad look, but it's probably somebody making more out of it than they need to. But I will say this. After what I saw with Florida State, I got Deion on the brain, so I'm thinking Florida State. After what I saw from Deion Sanders and the way he coached the end of that game against North Dakota State 2 weeks ago, and then watching them just get completely boat raced by Nebraska, they scored a little bit late to make it look closer than it actually was, but it was 28-0 for like.
Yeah, Nebraska looked good. Nebraska did whatever they wanted in that game. Dylan Raiola, Patrick Mahomes Jr., whatever you want to say about him, looks legit so far. I think that here's what I'll say about Shedeur Sanders. When he's not running for his life, which was most of the Nebraska game, I would be so mad if I was Shedeur Sanders. Like, and it's not like he has no protection. Like with a clean pocket, he's a great quarterback. And he even was trying to make plays out of nothing when his offensive line was not giving him anything. I think that Shedeur obviously plays for his dad, Colorado. Shedeur Sanders could play at, in my opinion, most other FBS schools.
Yeah.
And talented FBS schools.
Yeah.
I think that he would have been better off.
He would upgrade Kentucky's quarterback situation.
Right. He would have been better off playing for like a Kentucky, for a South Carolina, for Florida State, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Like he is a good quarterback. I take nothing away from him in this loss. He did what he could, which was very little. Like you said, walking out of the stadium in 2 minutes, I don't know what it means. He could have just been looking for medical attention because he spent half the night on the ground.
Right.
Like I'd be looking for medical attention too. Like I wouldn't want to be there anymore. Like, I want to go home. This sucks. I don't want to play anymore.
Well, I know, but from a leadership standpoint,
right? I agree.
Like
internally, you could be saying, "Damn, this sucks," but as you
still have to be out
face
there.
of the program, other than your father, the coach, like you have to be there to support your team.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, even if it was something like injury related, like, could it have waited the 2 minutes? Like, because he was walking, it wasn't like they were carting him off. You know what I'm saying? Like it. So I don't know. But I will say this: it's certainly a very interesting situation to monitor because this whole thing, there was a lot of hype around him. There was even talk about him possibly taking the Alabama job whenever Saban retired.
Yeah.
This is before Saban retired, though, because people thought it was going to be 3 or 4 years before Saban. And then he just surprised everybody, and they had to go scramble. And I don't think Deion was going to make that move then. But I think, first of all, he doesn't recruit the O-line well. Doesn't seem to care about running the ball all that much. And I get it if you don't have the O-line to do it and you don't have the backs to do it, but it's really going to get Shedeur killed. And then Travis Hunter's out there, God bless him, burning 4,500 calories a game, running 150 plays. It's like crazy, man. But and then it's not like he's playing like, I don't know, like some like meaningless position. He's their shutdown corner on one side of the ball,
the number one receiver,
chasing people all over the place.
Yeah.
I heard a coach last year say, I don't disagree. Like, I'd be running 9 routes on him the whole game.
You get him tired.
Just put some speedster out there and just run 9 routes.
Yeah.
Just figure his ass out. Every time. Anyway. Or drag him, whatever.
Yeah.
Just make him run.
Yeah.
All game long. Because that's what they do in basketball. You put they'll take Michael Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, whatever. They don't want them guarding the best player on the opposing team, because then you're going to wear yourself out. Excuse me, on the defensive end, and you've got to be ready to play 40 minutes, running the offense too. So anyway, this one will be. I think it'll be fun. I think it's going to be an interesting game, and it's hard to really tell how good either of these teams is because Colorado's got to win against North Dakota State. Okay, big deal. You almost lost too, and then you got smoked by Nebraska. Texas beat the brakes off of Colorado State in week 1, 52-0. And then they go and beat Northern Colorado 38-17. Not all that impressive this week. So this could be a battle of just like who's going to have the ball last, just like last year.
Right.
They're winning a double overtime. And it literally came down to the last possession was, you're going to win or you're not. And so that's what I think happens with this one. But the Deion experiment may not last too much longer in Colorado because I don't know if they continue to do this. What's that?
Yeah, I think all the craziness on the sidelines in the locker room that they're doing too much. I don't like. There's nothing around rewarding your players and things like that. But they're having concerts in the locker room after beating North Dakota State and
right.
And I'm not trying to shit on that's sick, but at the same time it's very distracting.
Right. Well,
that's dope. That's
it's
so
not
cool.
Just that,
all these people.
I'll call it out. I think there's a time and a place for everything, and I think going 3-8 and then beating North Dakota State is not the time and the place for celebrating yourself.
I agree.
Last year when they beat TCU, different story.
Definitely. For sure.
The defending national runner-up team that played in the national championship the year before.
Yeah.
That was this close to if things go differently in the Ohio State game. I don't know if Ohio State makes that field goal if it's you know what I mean? If it's you guys or no wait, that wasn't Ohio, that was the year before. Who did you play last year?
TCU beat Michigan to play us.
Right, but who did you guys beat that year? Was that the Ohio State missed field goal?
Yes, Ohio State missed the field goal.
Yeah. Okay. So if Ohio State wins that game, it's CJ Stroud and all that. But I don't know that TCU maybe doesn't match up better with them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We never know with this. But anyway, that TCU team was
time and a place.
They lost a bunch of dudes. They lost Kendre Miller and what's his name? The other Red Rocket. They had some talent that they had to replace.
Oh, Max Duggan.
Max Duggan, yeah, there you go. I was like, it's not Andy Dalton, but it's the other Red Rocket. But yeah, the celebration of that win, I get completely.
Yeah, for sure.
And then a narrow loss to USC and the Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams. Okay, I get it. But then when you rattle off all those other losses, and some of them. You blew a huge lead to Stanford. At some point, Deion has got to answer for how he's mismanaged those games to put them into position to lose. And then now you're doing this other stuff. I don't know. There's a time where you need to just remain humble and let your actions speak. And then there's another time where you go too far celebrating yourself. And you're drawing a big target on your back with your opposition, giving them bulletin board material. And which is kind of, I think, what happened with Will Campbell last week with the USC game where we're going to run the ball. Okay. And then Florida State bowed up and said, you're not running the ball in the fourth quarter. So you got to be able to stand up for it or, stand behind it. So I don't know.
I think Deion is because he is who he was and still is. He is doing all the behind the scenes stuff, but then the kids on the field have to defend it and stand up for it. When Deion was just himself as a player, he could act however he wanted and be as confident as he wanted.
And then he could go
out there and beat you.
He could go get a pick six and run a punt back for a touchdown, hit a triple.
Because he could be that cocky and confident because he could back it up every time.
Right.
It's you're still the one that people see, but then the kids have to defend that and stand up for it.
Yeah, and then some transfer offensive lineman from Alabama has to live up to it.
Right. I think that's a different story. And I'm not hating on Colorado. I think it's cool what they're doing, but they got to win some games.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the thing. I was rooting for them to when they beat TCU. I was like, "This is hype."
Yeah, I was on it. I was on the Colorado train. I was. Yeah,
but you can't. they're starting to sound like Texas A&M. That's the problem. is that they start to sound like Texas A&M, and we all know how annoying Texas A&M is. They think they're God's gift to everything, and then they don't live up to it. And it's just like, just shut up, and nobody will hate you. If you just shut up, we'll just treat you the same way we treat Mississippi State and Arkansas, because they don't talk shit. Nope. They just know that they suck, and then every now and then they sneak up and beat you, and then they can be like, yeah, there. And that's it. Gotcha. And then they move on, Yeah. But Texas A&M will talk shit all year long.
Yeah.
And then go 8-4 if they're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Anyway, well, ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to another thrilling week of college football. Week 3 should be fun. We are going to have some funner weeks though to come. I feel like we've been kind of getting robbed, where we have 5, maybe 6 solid games and maybe one doozy every week the last couple of weeks. Yep. We have some weeks coming up where the college football scheduling folks actually they got us hooked up for the second half of the season, and we're going to see some of that stuff start in the next few weeks, but it really gets crazy towards the end of the season. So we're looking forward to that. We appreciate you guys staying tuned for this episode, and we look forward to having another recap next week after this weekend's games. So don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe, and give it to anybody who you think might enjoy a little SEC football talk and just overall talk of the college football scene. But for now, we are going to say sayonara. I am Chad. He is Tyler. The South End Zone is out. Peace, y'all.